You know, one of the most common patterns I see, especially in women who feel stuck, resentful, or emotionally drained, is the internal belief that being nice is the only way to be loved, respected, or accepted. It starts early. You're taught to be polite, to keep the peace, to put others first. You're told that good girls don't raise their voices, don't say no, don't rock the boat, and so you become agreeable, accommodating, emotionally available for everyone except yourself. That's the trap of the nice girl. And while it may win temporary approval, it often costs you your authenticity, your voice, and eventually, your identity. Now, let's go deeper. This nice girl persona isn't just a surface-level behavior. It's a psychological mask. It's a coping mechanism built on fear, fear of rejection, fear of being seen as selfish, difficult, too much. Underneath it all is a profound need to be safe, because when you're nice, you imagine you'll be accepted. You believe you'll be protected from judgment, but the truth is, being nice is not the same as being kind. Niceness is performance. It's the attempt to manage how others perceive you, even if it means betraying how you truly feel. And that internal betrayal, it stacks. Over time, it becomes a quiet erosion of your self-worth. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked out of a conversation or relationship and felt invisible? Like your needs were never part of the equation? That's the cost. Because when you constantly prioritize harmony over honesty, when you give to be liked rather than to be real, people stop listening to your yes, because they know you'll never say no. They stop valuing your presence because they sense you're afraid to be absent. And you start attracting those who feed off compliance, not connection. You become a magnet for energy takers, partners, bosses, even friends who see your silence not as strength, but as submission. It's no wonder so many women wake up in midlife and realize they've been living someone else's version of who they were supposed to be. The nice girl became the reliable daughter, the over-functioning girlfriend, the agreeable employee, the emotional caretaker. She did everything right, and yet something feels deeply wrong, because compliance never leads to freedom. And pleasing never leads to purpose. You lose yourself in the role, and eventually you forget there was ever someone underneath it. Now here's the powerful shift. When you become conscious of this pattern, you have a choice. You can continue living under the illusion that niceness is your ticket to being loved, or you can risk being real. You can begin telling the truth, not to hurt others, not to rebel against the world, but to reclaim the parts of yourself that were silenced for the sake of approval. You might be wondering, but won't people get upset if I stop being so accommodating? Yes, some will. Because the moment you stop overgiving, you disrupt the dynamic that benefited them. But understand this. Anyone who only loved you when you were quiet, agreeable, and easy to control never loved you. They loved the version of you that made them comfortable, and that version was never the whole truth. Real love, real respect, real power, they're born when you have the courage to stop managing other people's emotions and start honoring your own. That's not selfish. That's sovereignty. And when you step into that space, you don't become cold or cruel. You become clear. You still lead with compassion, but it's no longer at the expense of your clarity or your boundaries. You give, but not to earn your worth. You speak, but not to be approved of. You show up, but now from a place of wholeness, not fear. This is when your life starts to change. You stop seeking validation and start experiencing alignment. You stop attracting relationships that drain you and begin drawing in people who meet you with equal presence. And most importantly, you no longer betray yourself to belong, because you've remembered, you were never meant to be small just to make others feel big. So if you're still trying to be the nice girl, ask yourself, What has it truly brought you, and more importantly, what has it cost you? It's not your job to be palatable. It's your job to be powerful, and power starts the moment you decide to stop performing and start living in your truth. So, here's what happens next. Once you finally stop playing the role of the nice girl, the shift isn't just external. It's not just that people start reacting to you differently. Something internal begins to unlock. You start realizing that for the first time, you're not living according to other people's expectations. You're living in alignment with your own truth. And at the center of that shift is one simple, life-changing principle. Boundaries, not walls, not barriers. Boundaries, clear, healthy, non-negotiable expressions of what you allow, what you don't, and what you truly need to thrive. Let's be clear, setting boundaries isn't about pushing people away. It's not about becoming cold or distant. It's about standing in your worth. It's about knowing where you end and where someone else begins. And this is where the deeper psychological work comes in, because many people, especially women raised to be hyper, attuned to others' needs, don't know how to define themselves outside of those roles when your identity has been shaped around being needed, being helpful, being liked. It can feel terrifying to say no. It can feel selfish to say, I need space. It can feel rude to say, that doesn't work for me. But let's break this down philosophically. What is freedom, if not the ability to choose? And how can you call yourself free if your life is a reaction to everyone else's demands? You're not free if you're constantly adjusting yourself to avoid discomfort in others. You're not free if your silence is a strategy to keep the peace. You're not free if every yes is a disguised fear of abandonment. That's not freedom. That's quiet self-abandonment dressed up as kindness. When you begin to assert boundaries, what you're really doing is reorienting your internal compass. You're choosing to respond to life from a place of intention, not obligation. You stop asking, will they like me if I do this? And start asking, will I respect myself if I allow this? That question changes everything, because self-respect isn't built through approval. It's built through alignment, through integrity, through the willingness to be misunderstood in the short term so that you don't betray yourself in the long term. And yes, there will be resistance, not just from others, but from within yourself. The guilt will show up. The doubt will whisper. Your nervous system, which has been wired to associate conflict with danger, will sound the alarm. But that's not a sign you're doing something wrong. That's a sign you're breaking a pattern, and every pattern resists disruption until it's replaced by something stronger. That something stronger is your truth, and truth isn't always comfortable, but it is liberating. You'll start to notice that the people who respected you conditionally, the ones who liked you as long as you were accommodating, will begin to pull away. And let them, because your boundaries don't push away love. They filter out dependency. They filter out manipulation. They filter out performative relationships built on convenience instead of connection. Real relationships won't just survive your boundaries. They'll deepen because of them. The right people will lean in when you say no. They'll respect your clarity. They'll admire your self-honesty because it creates a space where they can also be real. That's what authenticity does. It gives others permission to be authentic too. And in your own mind, you'll start to feel a new kind of peace. A quiet strength. A confidence that doesn't shout or prove itself. It just is asterisk. Because when you're no longer available for chaos, for guilt-driven giving, for emotional labor that's unreciprocated, you start to experience a new baseline, inner freedom. You're no longer a reaction to the world. You become a conscious creator within it. But none of this works unless you're willing to let go of one toxic idea. That love must be earned through self-erasure. That you have to explain yourself endlessly, that you owe anyone access to your time, your energy, your soul, just because they demand it. You don't. You never did. And the moment you internalize that, the moment you believe it down to your core, is the moment your life starts to realign with your power. So the challenge, the real challenge, is to stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for someone to validate your limits before you honor them. You get to decide what's sacred. You get to define what's enough. You get to draw the line, not out of fear or bitterness, but out of clarity, out of love, and most importantly, out of truth. Because here's the bottom line: when you stop explaining yourself and start honoring yourself, the world will adjust, or it will walk away. Either way, you win, and this is where everything begins to change. Once you stop being the nice girl, and you start drawing boundaries not from bitterness, but from clarity, what happens next is powerful. You begin to transform not just how others experience you, but how you experience life. And this final shift is perhaps the most profound of all. You stop chasing love, respect, and connection, and start attracting it. Let's make something clear. Real confidence is not loud. It's not aggressive. It doesn't beg, perform, or prove. It radiates and when you finally stop editing yourself to fit someone else's version of acceptable, that quiet inner power starts to show. You begin moving through the world differently. You're no longer driven by desperation or fear of rejection. You're led by discernment. You no longer need to explain why you've changed. Your energy speaks for itself. The most fascinating part of this process is that the people who used to overlook you now start to take notice. But here's the twist. They're no longer relevant. The validation you once craved starts to lose its grip because you've built a connection that no external praise can replace. You start attracting partners, opportunities, and communities that are aligned not with the mask you used to wear, but with the truth you now embody. Why? Because people respond to authenticity. They feel it, they trust it. And when you've done the work to accept yourself without conditions, you naturally create the kind of relationships that don't demand conditions either. Psychologically, this is a deep shift from external to internal locus of control. You stop organizing your decisions around what other people will think or how they'll react. You stop negotiating your worth in real time. Instead, you begin to lead from a place of inner stability. You don't shrink in the face of tension. You don't chase after people who pull away. You understand that your value doesn't decrease just because someone else can't see it. That's liberation, that's emotional maturity, that's power, and when that becomes your new normal, you become deeply selective, not from ego, but from alignment. You don't tolerate inconsistency, because your peace has become more important than their potential. You're no longer flattered by breadcrumbs, because you've learned how to feed yourself. You no longer romanticize chaos, because you've tasted clarity, and clarity always wins. Now I want to address something important here. This shift isn't just about what you gain. It's also about what you lose. You will lose people. You will lose approval. You might even lose entire identities you once clung to. But don't fear the loss. Those people, those patterns, those versions of you, they were only meant to exist within the boundaries of your former self. As you evolve, your life will go through a necessary shedding, and it won't always be graceful. Growth rarely is. But that space you clear out, that's where everything real begins. And here's something I want you to carry with you. When you stop being the nice girl, you don't become hard. You become whole. You become grounded, centered, still. You don't speak to be heard. You speak to be understood. You don't react. You respond. You don't try to control outcomes. You trust yourself to handle whatever unfolds. This is not about becoming cold or closed off. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about becoming so rooted in your truth that you can finally open up without fear. Because now, your openness isn't a gamble, it's a gift. One that you give consciously, not compulsively. You're no longer leaking energy trying to manage other people's impressions of you. You're simply living, breathing, creating, and loving. Fully, but wisely. People often ask me, how do I know if I'm stepping into my power? And my answer is simple. When your peace becomes non-negotiable, when your truth becomes effortless, and when your relationships start to feel like mirrors instead of performance stages, you'll know. Because you won't just feel different, you'll be different. The version of you who used to chase, prove, and overextend will be gone. And in her place will stand a woman who is clear, calm, and deeply, unapologetically herself. So I want you to think about this. If you never performed again, if you never shrank again, if you never gave your power away again, what kind of life could you build? What kind of love could you receive? What kind of world could you step into? The moment you stop needing the world to approve of you is the moment you finally become free to belong fully, deeply, and on your own terms.